All right, everybody. So just a quick question for the other folks, the other panelists. Can you all see my screen right now? Should be able to see the Google Tips, or are we showing my background? I'm not entirely sure.
It's showing your background.
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, I'm going to drag this over. How's this? Can you see this now?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, as Sharon and Mark mentioned, I'm here to share a little bit on Google, in particular, some Google tips and tricks that I use and have found to be pretty helpful for managing my own time. And in general, just navigating around the Google Suite a little bit better. So I know everybody comes to this with different degrees of familiarity with Google, and that's totally all right. I want that to be kind of the takeaway here is don't ever feel bad for not knowing all the ins and outs of a new system. They're changing Google all the time. They're updating it all the time. So it's really hard to stay on top of everything. And the way I like to think about this is it's kind of like a team project, right? You learn something from somebody about a little feature in Google that you can use, you share it with somebody else. And collectively as a group, we all get better at using it. So I have the benefit of having used Google primarily in a number of other jobs as well as in my master's degree program recently. So I am lucky in that I've done a lot of work here, and hopefully some of the tips and tricks that I'm able to show you will be helpful. So the first thing that we wanted to mention, and I know a lot of folks have already been in this and involved in this, but we have a new function called Google Chat. So you might already notice this. It shows up in your Gmail browser right over here. You can see chat. You can see all the live chats that you have. If your group and your office is using any rooms, we'll go over what those are each like. But chat basically replaced Google Hangouts. So if you're familiar at all with Google Hangouts from working here beforehand, Hangouts was a means of sending instant messages to your teammates, coordinating on projects, sometimes just checking in and chatting with each other as opposed to sending emails back and forth. So it's a great tool. One thing that I do want to share, and I'm going to post this link here to everyone in the chat. I hope I can do this. We want to share this with.
Hey, Winston, I'm putting it on the website resources as well.
Okay, perfect.
So if it doesn't go, it's okay.
Yeah, sorry. For some reason, I was not able to send that to the whole group in the chat, but as Heidi said, this will be in our resources after the event. But there is a way to download a standalone chat application, and I'll show you what that looks like over here. So it's its own app, and it looks like this. As you can see on my background, it's got its own little, application button here. So when you open that up, this is what Google Chat, the application, looks like. And if you prefer, you can use this as opposed to running things through your Gmail. If you do this, you'll still see various posts over here in Gmail, but you'll also receive notifications in chat. And you can add new chats by clicking the little plus message. So if I wanted to start chatting with a teammate, someone that is on my team like Stefan, this is what it looks like. And now I'm ready to just post in there and say hello. You can also notice that we have these rooms function. And Stefan just said hi back. Hey, Stefan. So what rooms are ways to organize around specific projects or specific work teams. So if you're in an office that has a number of different branches or subdivisions, we find that it can be really helpful to use these rooms functions. And you can add little icons to them to give them kind of their own unique flair and different things like that. So this is one that our group uses called SAS, that is for our strategic work group. And in here, you can see you have 5 members, so everybody's chatting in together. You can share files with each other. You can create tasks. It's really up to you to see how far you want to take this tool. But that's kind of what the chat standalone app looks like. But always remember that you can just find chat right here on the left-hand side of your email on Gmail. The next thing along with chat is that sometimes, as Sharon and some others mentioned, you need a chance to get away from it all. You need to not have a bunch of notifications. Maybe you're presenting in a meeting. Maybe you're doing some heads down work. So there are ways to turn off notifications from GChat and also to turn on a do not disturb mode. So we'll go over those. So what you can see here is over here in chat, if I were to look at a particular room, one of the things I can do is I can leave the room, can always return to it. That's one way to do so, but the more efficient way is to check out notifications. So if I click this, I can choose the notifications that I want from this particular room. So you can do the same thing for a particular user. If there's somebody that, has something that they're reaching out to you about, you can turn those notifications off. You can set it so that you only get notifications when somebody directly messages you and uses that @ sign and then your name. Or you can keep it as always on. That's one way to handle it. Another way is if you download this standalone Google Chat app, you have a number of other features. So you see this little green button up here at the top. With this drag down menu, I can click that and I can set myself to do not disturb mode. If I'm in do not disturb, I can select for how long. Maybe I have a meeting for an hour. I click that. And what happens now is if you look over here, you can see I have a number of contacts in our organization. If they have a little white dot next to them that's not filled in, that means that they're either offline or otherwise unavailable. If they have a green dot like Heidi does, that means that they're available right now. And since I just set myself to do not disturb, I would show up to them with this little red icon that shows that I'm involved in something. And you want to be as respectful of that as you can. I know I've definitely messed up on this in the past of messaging somebody when they had do not disturb on. But the beauty of it is even if I message somebody, if they have do not disturb on, they're not going to get a little noise notification. They're not going to get a little flag in the bottom right hand of their screen letting them know they received a message. So it kind of decreases the rate at which things are going to be popping up and maybe distracting or bothering you. So we'll leave that on since I am presenting right now. So that's just another thing on GChat and do not disturb. So another interesting tool that I find helpful is if you use Google Chrome as your browser, which I definitely recommend, especially for our organization. We do a lot in Google. We use Google for Google Sheets, Google Drive, Google Mail, Gmail. Chrome integrates really well with a lot of those things. And there are a lot of advanced features you can use if you're using Chrome. So if you look up here in the top, you see that I have these different color-coded sections here. What I'm using is a function called grouping here. So when you have a tab for a new window, what you can do is you can right-click it, and here, let's choose one that I don't have currently grouped. So got some text here, right? If anybody's familiar with lorem ipsum, it's a good way to make some fake text. If you right-click on it, what you can see is you can add the tab to a group. And you see I've got a few of these groups already created. But if you want to create a new group, you can choose the color. Say for this one, we're going to make it green. And then you can create a new name for it. So we're going to call this one the new group tab. And you'll see up here, each of your open tabs in your email browser are grouped based on the color and where they're appearing there. So it makes it easy to jump back to things. So I need to go back to the document that I was showing earlier. That's the Google Tips document. I click over to this red group, Google Tips, and it's right there waiting for me. So this can be really helpful, especially if you're doing multiple projects all at the same time, but sometimes a lot of them need lots of tabs open. If you're doing a big research project, right? Like I did one recently, and I was looking at a lot of different subjects. So I needed kind of everything all open at once, but I needed a way to kind of visually organize it for myself. And this is a great way to do that. Another way that this can be helpful is a lot of the time on Monday, I kind of start up a number of different tasks that I won't necessarily finish until Friday of that week. So more often than not, I'll leave them open as a way of kind of visually reminding myself, sort of as Sharon was saying, that, you know, I've got something that's going on that I need to attend to. But if I need to kind of keep them a little better organized, I can group them up like this. And then that way I can say, okay, this is not something I'm working on today. Tuesday, I need to return to it probably Wednesday or Thursday. So maybe I put it in this group and then I minimize it and get it out of my hair. I can sit back and be comfortable knowing that I've still got all of my work saved and all of the various different pieces of the puzzle out there, but I've kind of set them aside for now. So that's grouping in Chrome. One thing that Mark mentioned at the beginning of his intro is Google's integrated right side menu. So I'm going to show you what this all looks like. If anybody is familiar with this is this little ribbon right over here. So this is integrated into all of Google's products now. So you can see it here. I'm in a Google Doc. It's right there on the right. If I jump over to my Google Mail and I go to my inbox, I'm not seeing it here. What did I do? Did I hide it? There it is. It's right here on the right. Same thing goes if I'm, you know, maybe in a Google Sheet. It's right here on the right. So you can always find that. Same thing if I go to my Google Drive, it's right here on the right. And what each one of these things does is they provide a quick link to one of our great Google features like Google Calendar without having to navigate outside of the page that you're currently on. So as opposed to opening a new tab and going to Google Calendar and then clicking on it and then looking at my calendar, if, for example, I'm in the middle of writing an email to somebody and I say, oh, that reminds me, I need to schedule something that I'd forgotten to do, I can just click that link right there. And in my email browser, it opens up my calendar. And then I can go, okay, this was an event for the 8th and I need to schedule it from 2 to 3. And right there, I can create it. I can add my guests, I can create the title, etc., etc. And that way I can create my calendar and take care of that thing without having to pull myself out of what I was doing previously on Gmail and go to another tab and kind of navigate through all of that. Just another quick little thing that you can do. You can also use Google Keep. This is not something that I do too much, but if it works for you, it's great. It's a way to kind of take little notes, almost like a digital sticky note, and you can pin them so that they show up at the top of the Keep notes. You know, if you needed to just set yourself a little reminder or something like that. And once you're done with it, you can delete it. That's one way to use Google Keep. The thing that Mark recommended earlier was using Google Tasks. So this is like a digital task list. So if you have a specific task that needs to be completed by a date and a time, you can, you know, put something in here like complete my time card. And I know that most of the time, this needs to be done on Thursdays before the time period is complete and it needs to be reported. So I would set that for then, and maybe I want to make it, you know, at a specific time. Maybe I want to make it at sort of the end of the day as the last thing that I do before I get out of here. So I set it for 5 p.m. And then even if you want, you can set it up so that it repeats. And you can have it repeat, you know, every couple of weeks on Thursdays, right before you need to finish your time card, something like that. But you can do this for all kinds of different things. So this is a great way to keep kind of a running list. If you're opening it while you're looking at your email, for example, as you're going through email, you can say, okay, this email is related to this. Let me give myself a note to do this task. This email is related to this. Let me make another task for myself. And it's just another one of those tools that kind of helps in keeping everything front of mind. And in particular, as we're working remotely right now, it's really helpful because it's all stored digitally like this. So you don't have to worry about, okay, I'm taking my laptop with me. Oh crap, I forgot my personal notebook where I keep everything in handwritten notes. I got to go back home and get that. If you have it all on your Google account, it goes with you wherever you go. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. You can see I don't really use this feature myself. I actually have a spreadsheet where I keep kind of my tasks for the week, and I update that each week. Maybe in a future training, if that's something people want to learn about or they want to create themselves, we could go over that. There's a lot more to be done here, so we can definitely revisit some of these tasks and learn more about Google in future sessions if people are interested in that. So that's kind of that right side menu there. This is a key one that I learned in grad school. So Google, when you're in Google Docs, when you're in Google Sheets, what have you, automatically will try to keep the formatting from something formatted as it was originally captured. So that's why I had this up. We're going to show you, if I were to try to copy this text and paste it into this document, you'll see that it's not quite the same, right? This is 10.5 font size, this is 11. The font might be slightly different. One thing that I love is a shortcut using Control, Shift, and V is universal to all Google. So you can do this in Gmail, you can do this in Google Docs, what have you. But if you do it, what happens is instead of posting that text in the way that it was captured, it'll copy the formatting directly from the document that you're in, right? So if I were to delete this, and then I'm here, right, size 11, Arial font, and I do Control Shift V, it pastes it exactly in the same format as the document already had going on. So this can be really helpful, especially if you're copying things from other websites or from other documents, posting them. It strips out any of the excess formatting and leaves you with just the text. And that can be really a huge time saver, especially when you're trying to compile information from lots of different places. The next thing that we wanted to go over is how to send a scheduled email in Gmail. So I bet a lot of people are already using this, but we figured it'd be nice to share. Is using Gmail, you can schedule an email to go at a later time or a later date. So this is my example, right? What you can do is once you have your email and your text all drafted up, what you do is instead of clicking send, this little caret to the right says more send options. If you click that, you can do schedule send, and it'll give you this little scheduler right here. It automatically populates some popular times. So if you wanted to send it tomorrow morning before the workday, if you wanted to send it next week, things like that. But you can always click pick date and time, and it will automatically go an hour from the current date and time. So if you just want to send something a little bit later, you can always use that. But you can go as precise as to, okay, I want it to go tomorrow, but I want it to be in my person's inbox before they wake up. So let's have it be sent at, 5 in the morning. And that way it arrives at that scheduled time. It won't send until then. And then you hit schedule send. And what you can see is in your mail area over here, right? We have our different kind of landing spots. We have our inbox, our snooze, sent, things like that, different filters. There's a filter for scheduled. And the beauty of scheduled emails is once you've scheduled it, you can go in here and edit it if you need to after the fact. So let's say I realized, oh, there was an attachment that I meant to put on this. What I can do is I can actually cancel the send, and it'll pop right back up here. And then I can say, oh, let me go ahead and grab that attachment that I had forgotten. And let's say I had wanted to send this cute picture of Snoopy and Charlie Brown from the Peanuts. Now I've attached that. I can go ahead and schedule it again. You'll see this last scheduled time, right? It even held on to that time that I was thinking about sending it. So I can reschedule it, and now it's got the attachment in there. And now I've saved myself the pain of having to write a reply email after that fact that says, oh, I forgot to attach the attachment. Because I scheduled it and didn't send it immediately, I saved myself a little bit of a headache there. So that's just another tool that we can use. Another one, and I'm sure folks are already using this, is the ability to download and save files from your Google Drive. So here in my Google Drive, you'll see I have a number of different folders that are all kind of all over the place. But one that I like to go to is this NOAA Iconic Images. This is a folder that was created by Cheryl Oliver and her team. They do a lot of work with kind of documenting NOAA's history and some of the great achievements that NOAA has done. And they keep this great folder that I've used in times past to find really cool images to use for, emails or presentations from all over NOAA. So if I wanted to say, look at this image, right, I double click it. However, one thing we can do is we can save this image and download it, but we can do so in a number of different formats. So if I click download, it'll save it just as a JPG, a JPEG, as its normal version. But if I click up here and I select to download this, oh, that's still going as a JPEG. So it might not be possible with this particular image, but let me show you a different example, a better example. So if I had my Google Tips and Tricks document here, and I wanted to save it, I could go to File, and I could go to Download, and you'll see all of these different versions, right? So I can even save this as a docx file. So now it's automatically been converted into a Microsoft file. Same thing if I wanted just a PDF document. Let's say I've gotten some signatures on it and I needed to submit it. I could save it just as a PDF document or a plain text file. So there's a lot of different options, and you'll find that you can do that for your Google Docs. You can do that for your Google Sheets, right? And it saves it as a Microsoft Excel file, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can save these and download them so that you can edit them and approach them at other times. Then I want to talk a little bit about sorting and searching in G Drive. So we all use Google Drive. That's where a lot of us are storing our documents and things that we're working on together and collaboratively. And there's some great features within Google Drive to make it a little bit easier to get around. So up here in the search bar, right, we can always just search by typing things in right here. However, we can also click this button to go to advanced search options. And there's some really great tools here. So the first is you can select any type of document, and it will filter so that only those types of documents are coming up. So let's say you got an email a number of months ago that had some PDFs on it, and you knew that you saved them to your drive, but you're not entirely sure where. Well, one way to find them is to change the type to PDFs and then search, and then you're going to find only those documents that are PDFs that have been uploaded that you have access to. Now, in addition to changing the types, you can also select who the owner is. So you can say, if you know it's a document you created or uploaded, you could do owned by me. You could do, if you knew, you don't know exactly who owns it, but you know it wasn't you, you could search not owned by me. And in some cases, you can search for a specific person and type in their email address. So for this example, if I wanted to search for things that Janet has created, I would just put her email address there and hit search, and then it would show me only those documents that Janet has created that she has shared with me. Another tip here is that you can change the location. So right now it defaults to anywhere, but there are a number of different drives that you have in Google Drive. You have My Drive, which is all of the files that you directly own and upload and maintain. You also have those documents that have been shared with you. And so if you are looking for something that you know for sure you're not the owner of, sometimes it's helpful to search the shared with me, and you can say, okay, where is this? Maybe it's located in this document, agenda and minutes. And I click there and I can find it. That type of way of navigating can be really helpful. And another way to just kind of hone in and specify where that document might be. The last thing that's really interesting, or second to last thing here, is you can select the date that it was modified. So again, in that scenario where I had a number of files that were given to me, a few months ago, I could say, well, I know that they haven't been updated or changed recently, so let's put that last 90 days in there. And that way you can set yourself up to search for only those things that have been modified 90 days or longer ago. Within the last 90 days. So that date modified can be customized as well. So if you want, you can set a date range of when it happened between and things like that. But I encourage you all to kind of explore around and check these things out. The last thing is you can search this item name and you can look for specific phrases or specific words that might show up in the file or in the file name. So, you know, sometimes in previous searching, like on your computer, you might have had to put things in parentheses or in quotes, something like that. In this case with Google, you don't have to do that. You can just type the word and you'll see Google Tips for Efficiency and Time Management. That's the document we've been working through. And it shows up as this title, Google. All of the searches that I just went over have these little keywords that you can type in here. So where I was showing you, for example, the owner feature, instead of clicking in here and going to the owner, sometimes it's easier just to do owner : Janet Baran. And then it does the exact same thing. So that's a little bit more about how to search and filter within Google Drive. And I believe the last thing that I wanted to show is a new organization tool within G Drive that they just launched at the same time that we got our new Google Chat feature. So this is a feature that's called Priorities and Workspaces. And I also lumped in starred items because I think that that naturally fits in here. So going back to Google Drive, you'll see by default I go to My Drive. However, there's this new section here that's called Priority. So if I click in that, what you can see, Priority automatically generates things based on what it thinks I might be using. And some of this is done with artificial intelligence. So in this case, I just looked at this item recently, so that's why it's showing up here. You know, some of the other items that I might have recently opened are showing up. But Priority is going to automatically try to generate things and try to guess what you're looking for. Sometimes it does a good job, sometimes it doesn't, right? But, you know, for example, if there's a document that I regularly open up on Fridays, and today is Friday, Priority might pin that right there and make it easy for me to find. The other feature here is called Workspaces. And the way that Workspaces work is think about it as a more sophisticated folder, right? Whereas with folders on my G Drive, I have to drag things around and I can kind of create folders and then subfolders and then children folders. And I have this very strict hierarchy. What Workspaces does is it allows me to take different documents, different pieces that are all stored on G Drive. Some of them might be things that I own, some things might be other things that documents that are my coworkers or my team owns. And it allows you to create kind of a quick access dashboard by dragging them all together. So you can see some of my examples here, but you can take items, for example, that somebody else, my coworker Karen, owns and put it in here, as well as items that I own. And it's just a quick way to group things together. And you can always create a new workspace just by titling it when you create it. So once it's created, you'll get this pop-up to start adding some files. And it'll give you some examples that it thinks might be relevant, either based on the title of the project that you've started with your workspace or things you've opened up recently. But you can always hit choose other files and then browse through this on your own. And it'll show things that you own, some things that are shared with you. And it's just another great way to pull together all of these different resources and then have them all in one space together. So that is a little bit about that feature, Workspaces. And again, with all of these things, you know, they are only as good as you find them to be useful. Don't be overwhelmed. Don't feel like you need to start using all these complex features just because they're available. They're available for you to use if you feel that they enhance your work or make your life easier. If not, so be it. You know, we just figured it would be a good opportunity to kind of share some of this information as a lot of it is still forthcoming as NOAA continues to expand its license with Google and Google continues to develop new products. The last thing I wanted to highlight here is starring. So starring is really key and quite honestly, one of my favorite features of the G Drive. It's really simple. Any item you can right click on and simply add to starred. And what that does, it adds this little star icon next to it. And that gives it a visual indication that makes something stick out. So you notice I've starred a few things in my own Google Drive, like my projects folder. However, you'll also notice that my projects folder is blue, where everything else is this kind of gray. And that's another way to kind of make certain things stick out. Again, if you want to color code things, what you can do is right click and hit change color. And let's say I wanted to make this red. Now the folder sticks out a little bit more because it's that different color. And you can use that as you see fit to, kind of color code various different things that you think might stick together, or however you best see fit. Maybe you just want to kind of snazz up your drive a little bit and make it a little bit more colorful. That's as good a function as any. So that's just a little bit about starring things. Just a real simple way to make certain items in your Google Drive stick out a little bit more. If there are, for example, certain folders or certain files that you regularly keep coming back to, it's a great way to kind of pin them, so to speak, so that you can always find them with ease. And that's all we have for today on Google Tips. However, I do want to tease to everyone that we have a number of other great resources with regards to this. And one thing that our team is interested in knowing right now, and I don't have a poll function set up quite yet, so forgive me for that. But if you could just answer with a quick yes or no in the chat, is this the kind of thing that you would like to have other sessions on, these kinds of refresher tech trainings or specifically Google trainings? Because I'll show you right now, I've got a whole bunch of other really great resources here prepped and ready to go for everyone. And we can use these in future trainings to continue to share a little bit more about the Google Suite and make sure that everybody is able to use all of these really helpful and time-saving features. So if this is something that you're interested in and you'd like to have additional trainings on Google, feel free to just hit yes in the chat box right now. If it's something that you're maybe not as interested in, you could say no, or if you're somewhere in the middle, just say maybe. That way we can kind of just get a quick snapshot of where people are at in terms of their interest in this subject matter. If it's something you feel is helpful, we're happy to provide more. But I believe with that, I don't know that I have anything else. And I think that brings us almost to the end of our presentation here today. So thanks everybody for listening to my section on Google. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any other questions or any particular or unique needs that you have, feel free to reach out directly to me. I'm Winston.Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y, @noaa.gov, and I'm happy to help or walk you through those. And I think now I'm going to turn it over to...
Well, actually, do we have any questions for either of our presenters? We would love to take some questions if you guys have any. If you want to reach out in the chat or unmute yourself and go ahead and ask, that would be fantastic. I know someone does. I feel it.
I'll ask a question. This is Janet.
Thank you.
What do you do? Sharon, you talked a little bit about, you try to keep yourself in order. What do you do when you get overwhelmed? You're in the middle of the day, you've had all these meetings and the things are still coming in. How would you reset, or how would you re-get the day going when you still know there's just too much going?
That's a great question, Janet. So I would suggest tip that I gave about just sitting back and doing nothing to refocus. Also, I'm sure many of you are aware of the Mindful group here at NOAA, and they have their calendar open where during the course of the week they have various sessions that you can attend just to learn the different practices and tips that they have to be mindful. And it really helps to slow you down, to help you to focus and be able to regroup so you can carry on with the next task or things that you need to do. Because if you aren't at your best to do the things that you need to do, again, you're going to go back to be exhausted and overwhelmed and just kind of frustrated because you have so much going on and you're not able to really concentrate on focusing on that. So those mindful practices and tips that are offered through the NOAA Mindful Group are a great way to start. And then there are things that you can Google for mindfulness and be able to use those on your own as well.
That's great. Thank you so much. For our team here too, on our website, we did have NOAA Mindful come at our wellness day, so that recording is still available. And you know, it reminds me, I haven't gone to NOAA Mindful in a little while, so I am overdue for a nice visit there. What other questions do we have from folks?
Well, Janet, just while we're on the topic of that, I figured it might be helpful to show folks how to add that calendar that Sharon mentioned. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. So you'll see here on my calendar, these little maroon ones. Those are the mindfulness practices that Mindful NOAA has set up. So what you can do here is on the sidebar of your calendar, you hit this little plus button. You can subscribe to a calendar. And if you look in here, you have a couple of different options. Calendars of interest. This is just generic things that Google finds interesting. You can find certain holidays, certain sports, things like that. But what we're more interested in is browsing our resources. These are all of NOAA's calendars. So a number of these were used previously when we were in person, primarily to schedule specific events or the use of specific resources like conference rooms, things like that. But all of NOAA's calendars are located in here. So I highly recommend that you all check this out and browse these resources, because there's a number of really great calendars in there that you can find and access. So if we were to scroll down to the M's, oh, I missed it, must have. Does anybody know what the shorthand for this is? I know I'm subscribed to it, but I don't know exactly how I found it.
I think it's under Mindful NOAA.
Yeah, that's what I had thought too, but well, you can see our folks over at Fisheries have a lot of different interesting things.
Oh, I dropped the link to their website in the chat so people can access it.
Yeah, that's one great way to find it. But you can see some of the other calendars that I've already subscribed to, some of these NOAA centralized calendars. So forgive me, I thought that I could find it with relative ease, but apparently it's a little bit more challenging than I thought. But I know it's somewhere under these resources. You just have to browse for it. And while you're doing that, feel free to check out any of the other calendars that you might find helpful. For me, you know, I've got certain things like some of our HQ events. I've got certain things like the events provided by our Office of Civil Rights and Inclusion, as well as some trainings that are offered by Sharon's office in the Office of Human Capital Services. So you can see this is just a great way, another way to kind of subscribe to some calendars and get involved in those.
Oh, we've got a question in the chat. It's from Eleanor Brown. As we are using digital calendar a lot, can we save our calendar as a PDF or import data to it?
That's a good question. My hunch is that yes, we can save it as a PDF. And I'm just clicking through here to see. Yep. So I will share my screen again and show you how to do that. So should be able to see my calendar again. I'll just turn on all of my usual calendar reminders. So Eleanor, right up here on this gear wheel that says settings, what you can do is click that and then click print. And what you'll see is a preview of this calendar. And I believe that if you hit print, there should be another dialog box that pops open, which I am not seeing. Oh, there it is. It's just taking its sweet time. And right here as the destination, you'll see my default is save as PDF. That's because my computer here at home is not currently hooked up to a printer. If it was, I could select that printer from down here. But if I hit save as PDF and then hit save, what'll happen is it'll generate this. And I'll say this is my calendar, and I'll put the date on it. Say that. And then if I hit save, oh, maybe, I forget sometimes that we're not allowed to use backslashes here. We have to use periods. So, like that. Now, if we go to my file folder and we go to my downloads, double click that, and there you go, a printable version of my calendar. And you know, this isn't necessarily the most readable for me. I think if I were to print it out another time, I might change some of the colors and color schemes on this so I didn't have this light blue for all of my own personal events. But that's a way that you can print some of those and create a visual of it as a PDF. And I believe you can do that for weeks at a time, days at a time. It all depends on what you have selected up here. So right now my view is weeks, but if I wanted to, I could switch it to a month and I could see the whole month. If I wanted to, I could switch it to just today and see today. As for importing, that's something that I should definitely get back in touch with you. If you wouldn't mind just sending me an email to follow up. I'm sure that there's a way that we can do this. Like if you have another calendar from another Google account, or say maybe from a personal Outlook or something like that. I'm sure there are ways to import that, but I think I would just need to know what type of calendar we're trying to import or what type of data, and I could help you find an answer to that. So go ahead and send an email to me, and I'll be happy to help you with that after this.
Okay, we've got another question in the chat, and I believe this might be for Winston too. This is for Teresa Shahan. Is there a way to save the chat history from day to day? I'd like to know this one too, actually.
Another good question. My hunch, again, is yes. I would have to examine this a little bit more. Give me 1 second. I need that classic, soundtrack that they play in like the Monty Python movies.
I wonder if there's a way to turn the history on, because I think it's defaulted now to turn history off.
I know that it is for our agency, just because A, security, and B, because I know storing all of that information takes up a lot of space. And I know that that's one, because if you look at any one of your individual chats, like for example, I'll show again my wonderful one-on-one conversation with Stefan where we said hi to each other. You'll see here it says history is off. Messages sent with history off are deleted after 24 hours. So I bet that there's a way to change that setting, but it might be the case that NOAA has turned that off on purpose. I might just need a little bit more time. I'm going to take a note to myself on that. Sorry, Heidi, did you grab the name of the person who asked about this?
I'll write it down. I'll send it to you in a
Cool.
chat.
Wonderful. Yeah, so I'll look into that.
I can send you the chat from the GoToWebinar.
Oh, great.
Okay.
And do we have any other questions? Going once? Here we go. Does Google have an app that allows tracking of tasks?
Oh yeah, this is right in my wheelhouse. So there are a number of ways to kind of tackle this question. I guess it would depend most on what you are most interested in terms of tracking. If you're looking at, say, like a project, it might be helpful to connect with some of our folks in PRSSO about some of their project tracking and project planning tools. I know they have a number of trainings and things that they do with that. Sometimes you can create like a Google Sheet to kind of track some of those things. But if you're specifically talking about like a task list, this is one of the things that I was talking about a little bit earlier. So over here on my Google Drive, you see this quick link to tasks. Tasks itself is a whole Google app. So if we wanted to, let's see if we can navigate directly to it. So if you click this little, I always have trouble denoting the differences between these different things, right? We've got some that are the 3 stacked lines that some people call like the hamburger because it kind of looks like a hamburger. This one to me looks almost like a Sudoku puzzle, if you're familiar with those, but it's this little 9-dot square here. This is how you access all of the different Google apps. And so you'll see in here that this is where you can find Keep. This is where you can find, you know, a number of different things. Apparently they have Google Podcasts. I didn't know about that. You know, your Google Sites. Where is Tasks? Am I missing it? It's got to be in here. It's this little. That's very odd. I feel like it should be its own standalone app, but I'm not finding it. Maybe I'm just blind. Anyway, we come back
for that. I got a question for Sharon, actually, if that's okay.
Yeah, let me poke around and see if I can find it real quick.
Okay, great. Sharon, what's your top tip for balancing urgent versus important versus long-term tasks?
That's a great question. So it would also depend on what does it mean to you? Like, what does urgent versus important mean to you? And then the long term, what is that time frame? I could say long term is, you know, 5 to 10 years, where that could be mid-range for somebody else, or short term. So you have to determine what does that really mean for you and for the person that you might be working with, or group. So having a conversation to determine what that really means in terms of time, and then prioritizing the task based on what the meaning is, because the verbiage could be different to, you know, to different people. Winston, I think I'm gonna have you come and do demonstrations to the new employees, because you're doing a great job. I'm learning so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So I looked into it, and it looks like as of right now, Google Tasks does not have a standalone desktop app, which means that there's not a really good way to get it other than this little sidebar here. So as I said, you can access this from anywhere. This can be through Google Sheets, through Google Docs, Gmail, etc. But it's not necessarily as sophisticated as you might be interested in. But you know, you can create your tasks here and track them here. That's one way to do it. As I said, you know, if folks are interested in it, we can do other spin-offs where we do some more trainings like this. I'll show you what I've got. And this is something that I built out based on kind of the recommendations from one of my teammates, Rosemary, who gave me kind of a rundown on how she organizes her work and workflows on a given day. So I've created this kind of template, which I'm happy to share with folks if they find it useful. But I have kind of my different kind of project areas, as I have denoted them. And then various different due dates for certain things, and a checkbox feature. If it's, you can see up here at the top, the you can see this is the kind of the category. So a description of what it is, if it has a due date, whether or not I've completed any specific notes for it. That's where I just keep all of my different projects and tasks that are going on a daily basis. But this is another feature that Rosemary kind of put me onto, which is this idea of kind of organizing your day at the outset. So I have kind of this 2-day frame of what am I going to do today and or kind of leading into tomorrow. And then I have this holding space for kind of unplanned activities. If there are things that come up on a given day that I hadn't planned for, but I need to deal with immediately, or maybe I don't necessarily need to deal with it on that given day, but I want to have kind of a place to put it in, like a parking lot, before I then come back and look at all of these items and then move them over into my master projects list if I feel like it's necessary. Sometimes it's just short things. It's like, oh, I need to remind myself I need to do that. So let me just put it here in this unplanned hot list area. And that way I know I can come back to it. And it's not just rattling around in my brain anymore. I know that it's somewhere and it's safe and I will come back to it. The one thing that Rosemary did that I used to do, but I fell out of the habit here, is on this same daily work plan, she had kind of a schedule of all the different hours of the day. And what she would do is she would block off, like, these are the hours, you know, from 10 to 11:30 when I'm going to work on this project. And she would just enter in that, you know, she would merge all the cells into one and say, this is project time for whatever the project is. And she had that set up where she had, you know, her full work day from when she started to the end of the day. And each day, kind of the beginning thing that she would do was come in here and kind of set herself up for the day and list out all the things that she was hoping to do. And she would deliberately, as Sharon mentioned, kind of block in some times there for, you know, reviewing email or for unscheduled time where she could work on, you know, kind of any project. But she was really, you know, quite diligent about that, and I definitely recommend that. That was helpful for me for quite some time. I just kind of got out of the habit of doing it, so maybe this is a reminder to myself to get back to it and get to working on that as well. But that's kind of how I handle some of these, like, to-do list items and task lists. That's what works for me. But you know, you can use that Google Tasks feature, or I'm sure there are a number of other ways that you can kind of combat this and think about it critically. We did get a note from Janet here that we looked into, oh, and by the way, shout out to Rosemary for sharing that information with me. It was very helpful. Totally just paraphrased everything that she showcased to me, but that was a really helpful thing that she had initially showed to me. But Janet said, in answer to one of our previous questions about chat history, it's an organizational rule here at NOAA that we don't save that chat history beyond an hour or beyond a day.